Hello, Op Amp here. What I have for you today is this safe deposit box lever lock. This would be a lock you might find on the door for a safe deposit box that would store some valuables or documents. And this is a dual custody lock. So there is a guard key and then a renter key. And what happens is you need to turn that guard key before you can actually insert the renter key and activate the lock. And you can see I have the renter key right here, and like I said, this is a lever lock, and you can see this actually is supposed to be fully inserted. It won't even insert all the way because those levers actually block that key from being inserted unless I have the proper guard key. And therein lies the problem. I don't have a guard key. The friend that provided this to me had a lot of these locks, but only one guard key. And so what he did was he actually scanned in a photo and took some measurements and sent that to me. And I'm going to show you how I go about putting that into Fusion 360, CADing out that key, getting it 3D printed, and then we will take a look and see how it works. So give me a moment and we'll go to the computer. Okay, so I'm here inside Fusion 360. I've created a new project. And the first thing I'm going to do is come here to the top level in the browser, right click, new component, and I'm just going to name that one key 1. And I like to always start with a component in case I need to copy that later to make a revision, or I want to take that and make something new out of it. It's just nice to have a component that I can edit and insert and change. So I'm going to go to my source material now, which my friend sent with the lock, and that's these two pictures right here. The one on the left is a scan of the key with measurements that he's graciously provided, and the one on the right side is just a measurement of the key that I'm going to use to scale that picture with. So really two ways that I could do this. I could use that picture and all those measurements and plot everything out in a sketch and then extrude that into a key. But I'm going to go a different way, which I think will work in this case, which is I'm going to scale that image and use that to sketch over. So now I'm going to go back into Fusion here, and a couple things we need to set up. We have our blank project here. We're going to go into document settings, and since he gave me the units in inches, I'm going to click units and change those units over to inch. And then this way, everything will be working in his units. I don't have to convert over. And now I'm going to right click on the top of the browser tree, new component. And I'm just going to name that component key 1. And it's nice to use those components because you can really move them around if you need to copy it to another project or edit. Very easy to work with that. And I'm going to now get that image into Fusion. So making sure that this little circle is selected, activated component, and I'm going to click insert, attached canvas, and I'm just going to attach it on this plane right here, which will be sort of that front view. And then we're going to click select image, and I'm going to find my image of my key here, click OK, and you can see my image is already displaying there. If I want, I can move it around, transform it. It's fine for the moment, so I'm just going to hit enter or OK. And you can see now I've got this canvas of the image that I can work with. Now, the one thing that I need to do is make sure that I've scaled the canvas to the proper dimensions. So what I'm going to do is go and look back at our measurement here, and I can see that that height there is 0.282 and a half inches. I'm gonna, for now, ignore the half part because I might want to make this slightly undersized. Often 3D prints, because of extrusion and a little oozing, will end up a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna go with 282 as my measurement, and or 0.282. And I'm gonna go back into Fusion and I'm gonna zoom in right on that part here where we've had that measurement being taken. I'm going to go over to my key component and drop it down, canvases, and I'm going to right click on key and do calibrate. And that's going to let me measure, and you see I have my crosshairs here. So I'm gonna click right at the top of that key and then come down as straight as I can right to the bottom of that key. And we can see it's telling me right now it's is 0.03778 inches. And what we want, if you remember over here, is 0.282. So what we're going to do is go in the box here and just type 0.282, enter. And you'll see immediately that this image has been resized, and that's great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and trace it. So now that measurement of the, I guess you would say the height of the key over there is equal to the measurement right over here. Now this key was thankfully copied pretty flat. If you needed to, you could also edit canvas and you could rotate this around if it wasn't level, so you could really get it straight. So now what I'm going to do is create a new sketch and go up, create new sketch, and we're going to select through this plane. Remember, we're still looking at this front view over here because we're basically making two-dimensional CAD, and then we'll just extrude that later. So I've got my sketch right now, and all I'm going to do is come in here and start with some lines. So if I come up to my line tool, I'm going to left click on that, and I think I'm going to start from tracing right over here, and I can get in pretty close, and I'm just going to start and click, and come right over here and click, and come right down here and click. Now these cuts should be fairly square, and you can see here I've actually gotten a little out of square. I can either hit escape and maybe delete that line segment and sort of edit it and come back, or I'm hitting the L key here, that's a shortcut for a line. I can also escape out and get sort of that corner node and move that around. So again, I'm going to hit L and I'm going to click and edit point, and I'm just going to go and start clicking right across this key, tracing it out. Now I noticed that it doesn't exactly fit and there's a little bit of fuzziness in the image. Also, some of these keys do have angled cuts on them, so you may need to angle it, but you can also adjust a little bit later. And you can see there's probably some wear over here, and I see there's a bit of an angle, so I'm going to include that. And I'm sort of doing a little bit of an averaging just because at this point I want to get the basic profile, maybe give it a shot. There's always, you know, a certain amount of tolerance that is allowed in a lock because there's going to be wear and other things. So it may be that your key is not perfect, but you don't necessarily need it to be perfect. So now I've traced out that bitting pretty well here. I'm just going to sort of do a rough trace of the bow of the key, and I don't think I need anything really fancy here. I mean, you can make this as tight or loose to the image as you'd like. And then I want to come down here and just really make sure that I start on the right plane, because this is, or rather at the right point that's nice and even with the bottom of the key, because then I can really just drag this line across and it should hopefully line up pretty well, which it does. I'm going to come right here all the way to the tip where that curve is, and I'm not sure how important the accuracy of that curve is for the key, but I'll be sort of generous here in terms of my points. Now I am sketching with lines. You could do this curve or any other sort of curves really with splines. That's another skill which I'm sure I'll hit upon at some point. And now I'm just going to come up here and complete that tracing of the key, just like that. And you can see that quick, we've got a nice little outline. So I'm done with the sketch of, sketching the lines. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that, and we'll go and extrude this key. So now I need to determine what the thickness is, And again, thankfully, my friend has given me a measurement for that. And he says that that measurement is 0.074 inches. So what I'm going to do is click inside here and hit E for extrude. I usually like to sort of angle a little so I can see that I'm actually doing something. And we're doing 0.074. And you'll see we've extruded out just a little bit. I'm going to hit enter there. And just like that, I've got that key modeled. So really pretty quick. Now the real key, pardon the pun, is this going to work in the lock? And we're going to take a look and try it in a moment. Okay, so we got my keys printed. I have one out of PLA and two out of ABS. I'll explain that in a moment. And the PLA one came out very nicely. Just had to do a little bit of light sanding to get rid of a couple of little ridges there. And you can see the key goes in quite nicely. And it works. Turns very nicely. And we'll try it now with the renter key. Get that in there for you. And you can see it inserts all the way. And turn that and the bolt retracts. Wonderful. You can try this also with the ABS key. Now the first ABS key I had to do quite a bit of sanding on because it was just a little over extruded, but the bitting was fine. So that again goes in, turns very nicely, and get it open. The third key, I went back into Fusion and I just reduced that extrusion by about 0.2 of a millimeter. So it was just a little bit thinner, and that one right off the printer goes in and operates very smoothly. Now, a lot of people say that you can't 3D print a key because there's a lot of stress on it, and especially on the small features of the key, the little parts of the bitting and everything. And to a certain extent, you really have to be selective. This has very low pressure on it. It's really not being stressed very much, and that's why PLA and ABS will work. In terms of filaments, PLA is a little bit more brittle and will sort of snap before it breaks often. ABS is much more flexible, which works for you and against you because it's a little more resilient. You might start to bend it before it breaks off in a lock. But also if you have really tiny features, it may not be enough strength to actually activate that feature without bending. So you have to sort of just try it out. And it's kind of a fun little project to do. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Any comments, questions, please leave them below. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And thank you for watching. This has been OpAmp.